This episode of the Aussie Baggers Show is proudly brought to you by N1 Cornhole Gear. N1 are the leaders in cornhole bags, boards, and tournament accessories. If you want to take your game to the next level, head over to iplayaca.com.au and use the code Aussie to save yourself 10% at checkout.
G'day everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Aussie Baggers Show. You've got myself, Daniel, here with Liam, your host for the episode. And we have a very special guest on the show today, all the way from, is it the Northeast Conference, New England, Jimmy Youmans. Welcome to the show, Jimmy.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No worries at all. Well, I believe it's been a pretty busy weekend for you. We might just get a bit of a rundown on your weekend and, how you went at the ACL Open.
The season opener was last weekend. We were in Rock Hill, South Carolina, the ACL HQ, like the headquarters for ACL. Singles, I lost my first game, and then I ended up making a good run. I think I finished like 4th or 5th in my bracket. Doubles, playing with my partner, Brady Foster, we finished 7th in our bracket as well. It was a good start to the season. Wasn't great. Obviously, we all want to win. But it's a good place to start because you can make it. But draft. So the ACL draft is 16 teams, 16 players on each team. That covers all the pros, 256. Essentially, we're allowed to keep 5 players this year, plus team captains. So with those 5 players kept, we only drafted 10 rounds of players. And yeah, it went pretty well. Our team's pretty solid. We are the New England Woodchucks. Happy about that. Our team looks pretty good.
Well, I must say, as a fan of the New England Patriots, which is possibly not your favorite if you're coming from New Jersey, I believe. I like this. Yeah, from New Jersey, so you're probably not a big fan of the Patriots, but I like the sound of the New England Woodchucks. So, look, you mentioned about having the draft. So obviously you're the captain of the Woodchucks. And from my understanding, Jacob Trzynski, Storm Hogg, Michael Lucas Jr., Zach Schnibner, Tyler Cobb, and Alec Ryan were your safe sort of 6, including yourself, for the draft. Is that correct?
That is correct. We were one of the teams to trade early. So we actually traded for Tyler Cobb and Alec Ryan.
Okay. So is it the sort of same sort of draft system like, the NFL and a lot of American sports where you have the, I guess, depending on standings the previous year, changes up for your sort of pick number the next year?
Yep. That's exactly right. So we had our full team of 5. So they did it a little different this year. They took our combined singles standings and that was determined our first pick. So for example, if say we didn't want to keep 2 of our players, we only kept 3 instead of 5, we would have a higher first round pick. And then after the first round, into the second round, it went by standings on where you placed as a team. So like Pennsylvania won, so they had last pick in the second round.
Okay. Yeah.
Jimmy, do you see a shift now towards those sort of team style events? Like we saw the Major League Cornhole, or MLC, very controversial and short stint last year. And there was a big focus and hype around, sort of setting up a team-based league. Do you see more popularity in the team style, or do you think there'll always be, singles and doubles as the sort of front runner, and then having the teams as sort of a second tier event? Like, what's your take on how big the teams sort of setting and style will become?
So building a big fan base, you have to have a team based, in my opinion, because if you have a team to root for rather than just one player, there's more people that can get behind them. So for example, say I have 100 fans and my other teammates have 100 fans. That's more people just getting behind a full team. So I think for growth of the game, the teams is the best way to go. That's the way the ACL is planning on going. I'm also on the pro committee. They plan to make teams as big as possible, potentially making it into like rival, like NBA, NFL, stuff like that.
And so you just mentioned you're part of the pro committee, and so I guess sort of back on the draft side of things, in regards to how you go about choosing your players or choosing your teammates or who to keep and who to hope, hopefully they don't get picked up by someone else in the draft. How do you go about, deciding that? And are you part of that? Do you have a team manager, or is it mostly the captain and the few teams that stay that make the real big decisions?
So for last year, it was mainly me. It was me, Storm, and Kyle Malone, because we got him our first pick. They kind of like gave advice, and I made whatever pick I wanted to. Where this year, it felt like it was me, Shibner, and Jeremiah Ellis, actually. Our first round pick helped us
Who was your first
determine
round?
on who to pick. I felt like they had more influence this time because they both were kind of like agreeing when I wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So it is sort of really a communal sort of, hey, this is our team, this is where we want to go, this is sort of how we're gonna progress through it.
Yeah, so that's the way it should go. I mean, the captain has final say. So like if I really wanted a player, I could go and get them versus I don't have to listen to them, but that's bad for team morale.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And so is the plan to have a team's event and have your team play at every open? Will there be separate tournaments that are purely just the team's events? How does that play out throughout the season?
Yep. So every national, we have a team event. So there's 4 nationals plus worlds. So there's technically 5 weekends of team events. And then at worlds, there's like playoffs. So we play, I think last year we played 3 to 5 matches each national. So it was random whether we were on the broadcast court or we were on like the streaming court. That would determine on how many matches we played. I don't know what they're doing this year, but I believe the plan still remains the same.
Cool. And so perhaps it's something we should have started off with, but maybe tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of how you found the game. That's always like cool to know. And in terms of like when you first came across the game, when did you decide that, you were good enough to go pro and sort of do it as a sort of full-time job and talk us through that progression from just finding the game to then turning into a pro player.
Okay, so I was at a family friend's house and they were playing cornhole. I didn't know what it was. So I'm always competitive. We always played like cash games, no matter what we did. So we were playing cash games and I was taking the bag, I balled it up and I would throw it like 20, 30 foot in the air and it would just sit on the board. And I was so great at it, just putting them all on the board. And then they started a league like the next month and my dad was like, oh, you want to play in this league? And I didn't really want to play, but it was like spending time with my dad. So we joined this league and there was 9-foot ceilings. So I could not throw it high. I could not just put them on the board. So I was hitting the board and just launching them all off the back. And it was very frustrating. And somebody taught me to throw a flat bag. 2 people actually had developed my own technique. And I hit the ground running. I started throwing them in the hole rather than just on the board. And then someone else, like a group of pros, were like, oh, you're pretty good. You should come play in this event. And that was the ACL. So I joined the ACL that day. I got a partner just from like the league I was playing in. He was already playing ACL. And then I made top 16 in the conference. But back then was like needed to become pro. It was 170 in singles or 16 in your conference. I was literally just 16th. I was terrible. And I signed as a pro. I just wanted to play against the best people I can. And and COVID hit.
And that's what they say, right? Is if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and yeah, there's no point trying to just be the best at your local league. Really, it's putting yourself to the test, playing against the very best. And it sounds like you've now achieved that in terms of being as successful as you are. COVID was pretty interesting. I mean, for a lot of Australians, that's probably where we first discovered the game, because that was probably one of the few sports that was being played on ESPN at the time. What sort of impact did that have on you as someone that were just turning into a pro player? Did you feel like there was a chance that the ACL might actually fold and you'd have to go back to doing something else? What was the sort of feeling at the time when COVID hit?
Yeah, so this was just a fun thing for me at the time because I was a first year pro. I wasn't like really making any money off of it, to be honest. So we missed 2 nationals because of COVID. And then we came back, they came back for like this pro shootout thing, which is what a pro shootout is now, but they called it an invitational. So we came back and we were allowed to wear a mask. We had to throw one bag and then step out 5 feet, and then someone else would throw. It was like I'm pretty sure that's what you probably saw on TV. Everyone was wearing masks. And I made ESPN for the first time playing with a guy I met the week before, Andy Noyd. And we went on, we won our first match against the top 10 team at the time. We beat the team of the year and we were in the finals, and it was like a Cinderella story. And then we got 21-0'd in 5 rounds. And it was like a wake up call.
Yeah.
But that was
Definitely
the realization.
shows the
I was like,
levels.
wow, like I could really do this. Like I'm good enough to be a pro. And I just hit the ground running from there.
Yeah, so I guess from that sort of point, to obviously being captain of the Woodchucks, was that organic, or were you going out there trying to be a captain, or how did that process come about? Because obviously being a pro is seems like it was organic, but to be a captain, that's obviously involves playing some bloody good cornhole. But this feels like an extra sort of level up, and in professionalism. So how did that really evolve?
So we were elected, all 3 of us were elected captains last year. It was me, Jacob Trzynski, and Storm. Jacob was selected as the main captain, and I'm more of like a leader. So like I texted Jacob and said, hey, do you really want to do this? Because if not, like I can take over. Like they gave us the option to like, still be a captain, but you want to be the main captain. So he didn't want to do it. He just didn't want the work or whatever it may be. So I took over and I've been captain ever since.
Do you find that there's extra pressure involved with it? And I guess what level does the captain sort of go to? Is it really, do you organize team events or training sessions, or how I guess as the role as a captain, do you choose the double partners for teams, or is that just really organic and everyone makes the choice, but you're, I guess, the face?
Yeah. So as captain, you basically do everything that you just mentioned. You could take input from your team, but you're the one making the decisions. So who plays with who, like, for example, say we're playing Mark Richards' team, we're playing Chicago. We determine matchups, the captains. So like I will put up one of my teams, they put up one of their teams, and we match up accordingly. So there's more pressure as a captain, because if you draft the wrong player, you get backlash. But if you draft the right player, you get praise. So at the same time, you get all the gratitude and you get all the like discomfort, displeasure, I guess.
All that extra pressure. So look, I'm going to take you back to a game from the 2023 season, and just to hopefully get an idea for all us Aussie viewers. As when I was reading it, I was quite unsure of how it works. Now, it was match 20, game 1, and it was Kyle and yourself versus Ken Allen and Ryan Bishop. which you guys won 20-8. So it looks like that you guys play sort of 5 ends each, so you throw maximum 20 bags. And is it just the most points, versus by that point? Or, I guess how does the scoring seem to work?
Yep. So the way it works is if Chicago's playing New England, you have 7 matches of doubles. So you have 14 people playing at once. 7 matches of doubles, you have to win 4 out of 3. So you have to give the majority at least. So for example, our team 1, 2, and 3 lose. If we win 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, we'll win the game. We'll win the match essentially. So that determines your record. This year they're doing it a little bit differently. They're having basically total record matters. So say I win 5-2 and then I lose 3-4, like my record will be, won't be 1-0. It will be whatever my game record is, which is different this year. The way it works in each game is it's a 10-round limited game, meaning I throw 5 rounds, my partner throws 5 rounds, or first to 21. So if it comes down and say it's 10-10, round 10, it goes into overtime.
Okay. So they allow that follow up if it is 10-10 by the end after the 10 rounds, but basically 10 rounds maximum. Is that just to keep the speed or the flow going, or just stop those real long sort of stalemate sort of games from happening?
Yeah, it's to keep the speed from happening because like when you have like 4 elite players and you're just sliding, you're going into like 30 round plus like time constraints. It doesn't really work out. And it's also, it keeps it the same as what TV is. So TV for teams is only 10 rounds. So it gets you prepared for the broadcast court as well as normal.
How does that change like how you approach the game? Do you take the same strategy into the game as you would with a non-limited round match? How does that change how you play? And have you seen people perform better in a limited round format versus the rounds with no limits?
Yeah, so your strategy has to change because if it doesn't, you're going to lose. Say you give up a big round early, like people immediately think that they have to block to get those points back. But if you score 2 points per round, you're going to get the points back eventually. So like a lot of people misplay it, but like more people have success at it too. I feel like I'm pretty good at that format. I've had a lot of success in the past couple of years. I made 2 finals last year, and the year before I made 3 finals and 1. Now so I'll use like Ryan Smith for an example. He made doubles last year and this year finals and 1, and then he made singles as well and 1. So everybody has different success where he didn't have that success in like normal singles, so to speak.
Yeah. So I guess people who are down early perhaps change their tactic too soon, maybe throw blocks and things like that are not necessarily used to. And that only, obviously compounds the issue and the game's lost quite quickly that way. You're saying it's kind of, just have faith in your game, stick to what you know. And yeah, fair enough. If it gets to sort of round 8, round 9, and you're still 4 or 5 points behind, then obviously, maybe you need to do something a little bit differently. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think from a spectator, I definitely like the round limit. But that being said, I saw a pretty unbelievable game. I think it was Caleb Batson and his name just escapes me. One of your players who was playing in doubles over the weekend.
Jeremiah Ellis.
Anyway, but yeah, I just I saw their game and it was like, Caleb had to hit like 3 air mails in his last 3 bags just to stay in the game, and then he had, they were going bag for bag, and he threw his last bag and it just held up, because I think he throws mainly sticky side. It just held up and wouldn't drop in. So it's just funny how the game can change so much just through, literally inches, either side of the hole. So,
Right.
but yeah, definitely, think that limited round is good, particularly for TV. Going back just to, I guess, you mentioned that when you first started playing in a league, it was, 9-foot ceilings. We're not quite that bad, but we still have fairly low ceilings as well. So for new players, it can be tricky to try and keep the bag on the board. And they really do have to get used to trying to maintain a flat bag so they can keep the sticky side down and therefore keep the bag on the board. I've noticed myself that I've changed from, throwing with my throwing foot forward and then back, and then throwing with a step and then not stepping. When did you sort of reach a point where you thought, okay, this is going to be my technique, this is how I'm going to stand and I'm going to stick with it? Did you test yourself and go to a tournament and throw all one way, and then the next week throw a different way until you found what was most comfortable? How did you basically find what was comfortable for you? Because it doesn't seem to me like there's any one best way. I mean, everyone throws so differently in the pro league. So how did you find what worked for you?
So what works for everybody is different than what might work for me. So I'm a stepper. So I've always stepped. I've tried not stepping when I first started, and I would throw it too hard trying to get it to the board, and I would never be able to keep it on because I couldn't throw it with the height for the 9-foot ceilings. So I always stepped. I can stop. Like I could throw without a step now, and my bag has like no power behind it. So I really prefer 2-step. I've always stepped. I probably still will. If I was to do it over again, I wouldn't step. Your stance really doesn't matter as long as you're comfortable and you're not off balance. So say I have right foot forward, and when I throw, I like fall to my right. I would say change your stance. If you throw left foot forward and you're like completely comfortable with that and you don't fall, like your weight is evenly distributed, that's where you want to be. So most people are right foot, most people are left. It really depends on your preference.
And do you find in it? Sorry, Liam, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna, I guess, on the step. Now, I know there were some changes. Was it for this season or there was talk around the sort of foot foul kind of rules with throwing the bag and stepping over? So can you elaborate on that, and I guess what your thoughts about that sort of are?
Yep. So basically the rule is I can throw a bag. If I release before my foot goes over the line, my foot can go over, but one foot has to be in the throwing box, like the pitcher's box, they call it. And it has to be touching. You cannot lift it up. So for example, say I throw and I step over and I go to walk because that was my last bag. If I walk, that's a foot foul because my bag didn't stop yet. So essentially I have to throw, the bag has to come to a complete stop, and then I go back into the box and then I go off.
And so if it is considered a foot foul, what are the repercussions for that?
Yep. So a foot foul is the bag you threw is dead, meaning it doesn't count. And any bags of your own that you push in don't count as well. So if I have one bag on the board and I push them both in and I foot foul, the bag I pushed in counts as 1 point because it was on the board before I threw a bag. And the throwing bag doesn't even count.
And
was there anyone pulled up on that at the first open? Like, was there anyone that called the director over? And
no. So that's another good point. So before a game, if you want a game officiated, you have to call the director over, or else there would be no one like really enforcing the rules.
Okay. I feel like that would be tough, right? Because you may not know. I mean, I'm sure you guys on the pro circuit all know each other. So yeah, I feel like it's a bit awkward for the player to have to call that, right? But I also see the difficulty in trying to have a referee on every single court. It's probably not practical at this stage.
It's like having
unless maybe it's
siblings.
for like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, so it's interesting that because I know there was a vote with the players last year, and then they kind of came up with something in between, no one over the line and keeping the step. And so now we're in this sort of weird middle ground. But I guess for someone like yourself, you've always stayed behind the line. So it's not really an issue for you, but yeah, I can see how
So not really.
there's arguments on both sides.
Like sometimes because I'm so off balance and I step, I can go over the line. It's
Yeah.
with my follow through foot. And it just has been like a reaction more than I could
Yeah.
stay behind the line and throw, no problem. It's just something I unconsciously do.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it would be a pretty big call to say, all right, no one can step over. Because, for people that have been practicing and training for years and years and years to then all of a sudden have to completely change the way they throw, I feel like that would have created, a lot of issues with some of the players. But perhaps that rule change was maybe a progression to then make another adjustment in a year or two's time. Who knows? But it's
I agree.
It's definitely interesting when the responsibility is put on the players to kind of make a call or bring someone over, particularly if it's a good friend or someone that you know.
But it can get,
At what point does
get
come a
hairy.
man-cad? Which is a cricketing term which you're probably not familiar with, Jimmy. But
What was
the man-cad. It's one of the most controversial rules in cricket, and a lot of people hate it. Don't think it's in the spirit of the game, and all that sort of jovial competition. So,
there's the rule book and what the rule says, and then there's
spirit.
also like what's maybe common sense and the right thing to do as a player. So seems like a similar thing.
It is very similar to that. Like if you're like walking down the court when you're throwing a bag, like then they're obviously going to call a director over. Like if you're abusing the rules intentionally, then they're going to call somebody over.
Yeah, for sure. So we've obviously got the Australian ACL Open happening December 8 to 10 this year. Are you making the trip out for this at all, or?
I really wanted to, but it's just not. It's very expensive to fly out there right now, so I'm just not going to be able to make it.
That's unfortunate. Would have been great to see. Do you know anyone else that's making their way out that possibly hasn't released that they're coming, or?
So Sean Farrell's going. He's a cool dude. He has been to almost every single European Open. That's who we hang out with. He's out of the Northeast. He was a former Woodchuck last year, not this year. Unfortunately, we weren't able to draft him. But he's out of New York. He's a pro. He's a good dude.
Okay. Awesome.
I feel like so there is some prize money up for grabs, $10,000 I believe across the different formats. So I guess that's a little bit of a carrot there that the ACL is dangling to perhaps encourage a few of the US players to fly across. But yeah, I get it. It's like, doesn't matter where you're flying from. It's always expensive to not only get to Australia, but then, spend time here as well. So we definitely get that. But fingers crossed we get a good mix of international players as well, because it is obviously, probably the biggest, event for the sport here in Australia. And I think, particularly if it's televised, and takes off on social media, I think it'll be huge for the game here. And if I'm correct, you're an ambassador for ACL Europe as well. And from what Todd tells me, from the first year to the second year, the numbers grew like 300-400% in terms of participation. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience with ACL Europe and how you've been involved there?
Oh yeah, it's been great. everyone from Europe. It's such a different experience. Like they're so happy just to be there, like to be in and like other pros' presence. Like it's I don't have words for it. Like they're cheering you on. Like the one time, Germany was the first one I went to, and I beat somebody 21-0, and the guy was like, "Thank you for playing against me. It was an honor." And like, like getting that in the U.S. is not happening. Like, it's just totally different mentality. Totally different mentality. It's much better over there. I like the camaraderie. Like they're so big into teams over there. So we do team events at these opens where you have, I think it's 6 players on a team usually. Like the whole country will get behind this team if they're playing against them. Like a good example would be seeing Croatia versus Germany. Like everyone, they have the Croatian flag out and they're all like cheering every point, every bag, and it's really cool to see.
Just a massive, excited community that's just loving, I guess, getting to enjoy this sort of level of competition, and definitely seeing players like yourself. So it's unfortunate you can't make it out this time, but hopefully next year it goes ahead as well, and we can see you next year, which would be amazing.
Yeah, I would definitely want to make it out there.
And I guess for Australia, my hope is that we will have a team that can travel to Worlds next year. I mean, that would be incredible, and I think it is a possibility. I also see with the shift and momentum that the teams format has with the ACL, and I think that you'll also have minor league teams underneath your flagship teams. There is possibly some potential to have, some say Team Australia, Team Germany that obviously play against some of those minor league teams as well. Obviously, yeah, travel and cost is something that needs to be considered, but I think, yeah, that team's format and the ability to get behind your own country just brings something different to the sport. And yeah, it sounds like some of the pros and some of the people you play with could do with a trip to Europe or Australia or one of these international events just to maybe remember where it all began and why they played the sport, because it's easy, like any sport, to get to a point where it becomes almost a chore or something that you kind of forget the reason you first started playing. So it's good to hear that you had such a positive experience in Europe.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it, is it becomes a chore or something, because like you do lose that eventually, and then you're like, why am I doing this? And then like you go out and see that, and it's like heartwarming. It's like really interesting.
So during the week, I sent across for the Dropbox for a couple of players' throwing styles. Were you able to get to have a look at those by any chance yet?
Yes, I would. I would have to look to see the names to help you out there, because I don't remember the names. So when I looked at them, they actually looked pretty solid throws. There would only be like 1 or 2 tweaks I would have to say something about. So like, I feel like their bags fly pretty flat. I couldn't tell by their angle, but it looked like they weren't too like nose down or too sideways.
And I guess that's the key point, just making sure your bag is flying flat. So you get a consistent slide on the board or consistent flight. Like, what's the key? Well, what's the main reason behind wanting that flat bag?
Yep. So the flatter your bag, the straighter it goes. So if you throw like a crooked bag, or say most common is a nose down bag, right? So one of their players releases and then he ends up pushing the bag because it's falling out of their hand. So it comes out nose down. It was the first video you sent. The solo dude that was inside, I'm not familiar with his name.
Yep.
But he kind of throws nose down, and because it falls out of his hand. So like if he held on to it a little bit longer, you'd be able to throw it flatter, the bag would go straight. So if he threw like, say, something really sticky and he threw nose down, it would probably kick to the left rather than go into a straight line.
And so yesterday, while I was watching the draft, I noticed that they mentioned that I think that you have some of the best rollover bags they've ever seen, basically, or there's no rollover that Jimmy couldn't do. Are you able to sort of I guess discuss what the idea behind the roll bag and how you get the roll bag to work?
So they were definitely talking about somebody else. They're probably talking about Tony Smith. But
Okay.
the way it works is essentially the bag comes up back tilted. So the front of the bag is lifted up and it hits right before a bag on the board, and it causes it to flip over or to tumble.
Okay.
Is there a bit of is there a bit of angle on the bag as well to help with that roll shot? Or if you backload it correctly, you could still throw it straight and have it roll?
So but it depends on what you're trying to do. So for example, if the left side of the hole is blocked, you can angle it right side down and nose up. So it kind of like rolls and it will cut as well. It will go right to left. But then like you mainly want it to go just straight back tilted. So it just flips straight over.
Yeah. And when would you say is the right time to consider changing or attempt roll bags? Like you see on a lot of the Facebook posts, people asking how to throw a roll bag. And then you see other comments saying it completely stuffed up my throw and now I don't know what to do and I'm even worse than when I started. I feel like for some people, it would actually be better than like just to stick with what they know, which is maybe just a flat bag and throwing air mails. It seems like a lot of the younger kids though now are growing up and starting out trying to throw that roll shot because it does look a bit sexier and there's a little bit more fun to it. What's your advice to people that maybe are just throwing a traditional, flat slide bag and they're considering or want to start throwing maybe a roll shot? When do you think would be the right time to do that? And do you think it's, beneficial to do that in the long term?
So to be successful, you do not need a roll shot. You could be the best player in the world and not have a roll shot. Obviously having more shots makes you a better player all around, but it also takes away. So like, say you're practicing a roll shot, it takes away from your other shots because you're not practicing that. The issue with people that they're trying to roll is they initially will block themselves, like put up blockers, and then they'll only throw roll shots. That usually messes up their throw and they end up becoming like their bag comes in as a roll shot rather than the flat bag they had. I see it a lot locally with like middle level players. So my advice would be to practice your roll shot, but only don't just practice rolling. Like throw your slide shots, throw your air mails, throw your pushes too. Because if you're still throwing a flat bag and occasionally throwing a roll shot, you're going to get it. But if you only throw a roll shot, that's what your bag's going to become.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that probably takes us to what we had questions for. Dan, do you have anything, or Jimmy, do you have anything you'd want to have a chat about and, tell the world about, I guess?
I just appreciate you guys having me on. I'm excited for things in Australia.
Yeah, no, we're super appreciative, mate, to have you on the show. I know that you probably would have been throwing bags pretty much all day, every day for the last couple of weeks. And also, with being the captain of your new Woodchucks team, I'm sure there's plenty going on there as well. So we appreciate you taking time out of your day to speak with us. Looks like I saw on one of your bios online that you're a Call of Duty fan. I don't know if you still get much time to play, but I'm sure Liam, he's an avid gamer. I used to be until I had kids, and my wife threw my PlayStation into the bin. Maybe the next time we catch up will have to be online with some multiplayer or something like that.
I'm an avidly bad gamer.
I'll play.
I love doing it, but I suck. That is the
as long as you enjoy it.
Honest truth. Exactly. Well, we really appreciate it, Jimmy.
And hey, Jimmy, sorry, one last question. What bags are you throwing this year? I know I saw you sign with Reynolds Bags. Is there any particular bag that you're throwing this year? And if so, what do you like about that bag and Reynolds in general?
Yeah, so Reynolds are very reliable bags. They're at a good cost too. Most bag companies are like $40 more than Reynolds, and Reynolds are just as good. We're probably going to be throwing the Thunder this year. They're not completely out yet to the public. They should be out in like next month. But it's like a hole friendly carpet material. And then I also am throwing, like for now, we've been throwing the Hurricanes, which is like a 5.7. It's like a perfect middle line bag.
That sounds interesting. I mean, the Pro Advantage is the bag that I've heard of, and it is probably one of the few bags that has stood the test of time in terms of everybody. If you say Pro Advantage or bring it out, everyone knows what it is. It's a very some consistent bag, and I know, just reliable and multi-purpose. And I would think that a bag like that would be the other thing in terms of playing a team's event. And some of the issues that we run into at our local league is some players like using a certain type of bag, like a fast bag, and others really like the slow, tacky bags. So you might get two good players come together and play, but depending on which bags you choose, it might all fall apart because one player's finding it too fast, the other's finding it too slow, and vice versa. So I feel like that would be quite an important part of finding a doubles partner, is making sure that you've both got a bag that you enjoy throwing, right?
That takes a big part in finding doubles partner and in teams as well. So like most of our team throws slow bags. They're able to throw a slow bag. So like by passing up on a fast bag thrower, because we can't use them on the team, like they won't be able to mend well.
Yeah. So I feel like someone like a Damon Dennis or Frank Modlin wouldn't necessarily be suited to the Woodchucks team just because they're not traditional carpet throwers. I mean, I'm sure they're amazing players and could adapt to some extent, but yeah, that's definitely the interesting part of the teams and doubles format, is that the choice of bag really comes into play.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we should finish that up there. I've got to get to work and start the day as it is,
Likewise.
8:50 in the morning. But look, we really appreciate your time, Jimmy. It's been a great chat. Good to talk to you and learn a lot more about, I guess, the American side of the Cornhole League. So yeah, look, we're sorry we won't see you at Tweed Heads. But if any of the Woodchucks do come out, that is an absolute killer hat. So you might have to send some merch over for us.
Yeah, I got you.
Cool.
Thanks for coming on, Jimmy. Thanks, Lam.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. We would like to thank our sponsors N1 Cornhole Gear for supporting this show. And remember, head over to iplayaca.com.au and use the code Aussie for 10% off all purchases.